Day 5 of the Commonwealth versus Karen Read. The Commonwealth theory of the case seems to be that Karen Read in some way struck her boyfriend, victim officer John O'Keefe, with her Lexus and caused him to fall in some manner and hit his head because he has injury to the back of his head, and then left him in the snow to die. The defense theory of the case is that he was actually beaten up inside the party where she had dropped him off and then dumped outside and left to die. So while the court's on break, we are at the beginning of week 2 of the Commonwealth versus Karen Read, day 5 of evidence with Canton PD Lieutenant Paul Gallagher. This is the 13th witness called by the Commonwealth. And so far, we have established that this lieutenant is the one who used the leaf blower to uncover things at the crime scene and took all the photos that we have been subjected to, which are a challenge to see. It was clear that this lieutenant had never processed a crime scene in the snow before because he said, I have never processed a crime scene in the snow before. They collected the frozen blood out of the snow in cups, no further description, and marked those into evidence. They recovered the broken cocktail glass that they uncovered from the snow and marked that into evidence. You know what we haven't heard? That there are any pieces of broken taillight. And he said they got almost down to the ground using the leaf blower where the victim was located. We also heard that they had called for the state police to come out and investigate, and the state police indicated that because the victim had not been declared dead yet, that was not a scene that they were going to respond to at that time. We also heard that they did try to put up crime scene tape, but due to the wind, the crime scene tape was not helpful, and repeatedly said, and there was no one that the crime scene tape was needed to keep out because no one was coming to the scene. No one was coming out of the houses. No one was around trying to access the scene. So there was no need to keep anyone out of the scene with the crime tape. So because of the wind, they took it down. There were also no evidence markers, but this lieutenant was in their personal vehicle when they responded. So A, they probably didn't have them. And B, if it was that windy, they probably would have just blown away. The photos are very difficult to discern anything. And if you've never taken photos in the snow, I can understand why they might be so blurry. It takes a little bit of effort to make sure things are, in focus because snow. So we also had a bit of a argument this morning from defense counsel before the witness began because the defense is arguing over photos of Caitlin Albert with the fire medic McLaughlin, many more photos, including photos at a baby shower from 2021. So not old photos. I don't know how that witness thought that the internet wasn't going to internet. Like, this is a central feature of every case that we cover that is on the internet. If people know anything about a case, you know what they're going to do immediately? Email the court, which you shouldn't do ever. But then they're going to email all the attorneys. That's exactly what's going to happen, and that's what happened in this case.
All right, counsel wanted to see me?
I did, Your Honor.
Oh, the jury's not present yet.
Judge, as I indicated in an email that I sent to your clerk last night and copied to Commonwealth.
I have not seen the email.
Okay, well, I'll explain what was in it.
Sure.
Essentially, I was alerting the court that I would like to be heard prior to the start of testimony today because since Katie McLaughlin testified on Thursday and Friday.
Remember, Katie McLaughlin is the fire paramedic who indicated that she did not know, but knew somebody by the name of Caitlin Albert, but they weren't like besties. I bet the internet went nuts over that over the weekend, but she was very much distancing herself from knowing someone named Caitlin Albert, and the defense wanted to show photographs for impeachment purposes to the witness and then admit them into evidence. But when they voir dired the witness, they were allowed to question about it, but they weren't allowed to admit the photos in. It seemed that the court was using the discovery rules to keep that out, though I don't think the discovery rules are the proper vehicle for that. I have some foundational issues. We'll see if they can overcome it, but I'm not surprised we are here now with, we need to revisit this.
We received a deluge of photographs.
Oh, the internet did internet. Emily, keep watching. Emily, keep watching. The internet interneted.
That put her with Caitlin Albert on many different occasions after they graduated high school. We received information from their high school yearbook that they were more than just acquaintances in high school. They were teammates on the track team. And even after I sent that email with the photographs that I attached to it, late last night, we received
Of course you did.
another photo where Katie McLaughlin and Caitlin Albert are standing next to each other in a photo at a baby shower in June of 2021, about 8 months before John O'Keefe's
What?
death. It's very.
Oh, girl. Oh, girl. Oh, girl. 2021. Oh, girl. Oh, girl. The internet interneted.
Very clear to us that Katie McLaughlin perjured herself. And I wanted to discuss the issue of the admissibility of not only the
Well, that's a
photographs that we're
Monday.
now providing that we just received over the weekend, but I also want to resurrect the admissibility of H, I, J, and K for identification.
Yeah.
And I think a discussion of this, Your Honor, needs to start with
Yep.
what court orders are currently in place.
Get it, Yannetti?
The leading case with regard to the provision of reciprocal discovery when the defense is
Oh,
offering.
so you want to get back to Rule 14, the Rule 14 issue?
It is a Rule 14 issue.
Okay.
That's
So
supplemented by.
hold on one second. So on top of that, we can discuss this later. I'd like to
No.
get the trial started.
No.
That's fine, Your Honor.
No.
My belief, my strong belief, is that we need to determine this today, and the
Yes.
reason is that Caitlin Albert is coming up as a witness for the Commonwealth. She faces the same areas of
Yes.
cross-examination that Katie McLaughlin faced, and these photos are relevant to her cross-examination.
Okay. All right. So aside from the Rule 14 issue, I also think this is cumulative. I don't have the email. I do have the photos, but we can address this. When do you expect?
Ma'am, this is not cumulative. Those were old photos. And that witness said a million times, these look like old photos. Those look like old photos. These look like old photos. A baby shower in 2021 is not cumulative. Now it's cumulative. Oh, Your Honor. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
The Albert. I'm sorry. What's her name?
Caitlin
Caitlin.
Albert.
Caitlin Albert.
I'd say midweek, probably. It depends on how far we
All
get
right.
today.
So we'll address this either today or tomorrow.
Thank you.
This morning was quite a lot in the Commonwealth versus Karen Read, day 5 of evidence, the beginning of week 2. We only got through to 1.5. The prosecution at the beginning of the day said direct examination would take about a half an hour. That's not what happened. We heard why the first witness believed that there was a conflict between investigating this case and Canton PD. And that's because the homeowner where the victim was found, Brian Albert's brother, works as an investigator. And I think the witness said one of our best investigators. They are brothers. So Canton PD officer, brother to Boston PD officer, homeowner Brian Albert. And of course, we learned where those red Solo cups came from, which is across the street, because one of the higher ups at Canton PD lives across the street from Brian Albert. We also saw photos of the evidence bag of the Solo cups sitting in the Sallyport Bay while CSI was going over Karen Read's vehicle. The defense seemed to imply that those had just been like sitting there since the time of the crime. The prosecution tried to clean that up on redirect and say that that was photographs of the handover from evidence going from the police department to the CSIs, but I don't know why they weren't going directly from the evidence locker to the CSIs. And the prosecution didn't make that clear at all. So the impression that something is amiss remains lingering, I think. I don't think it was cleared up very well at all. The prosecutor's like, oh, can you explain more what was happening? Yeah, we were giving them to the CSIs. But where did you get them from? Because the impression that they never got booked into evidence is still lingering. This case, day by day, gets more and more wild. We went through the crime scene photos taken by the first witness today, which are difficult to see, but there is video of the first witness of the day using the leaf blower to uncover more evidence in the snow. You know what that witness did not see at any point in time? The victim's shoe, the victim's baseball hat, and any pieces of taillight. But what they did see is blood in the snow and a piece of like a drinking glass or like a bar glass. And we heard in opening statements that the victim in this case left the Waterfall bar with that open container glass from the bar and took it out with them. We have not seen those videos yet. We have not gotten into that part of the testimony yet, but I imagine when we see that, we will also see that the victim was wearing a hat based on this line of questioning. This afternoon, on day 5 of the Commonwealth versus Karen Read, we finished mostly with one of the witnesses from the end of the morning session, Sergeant Good, but we were not all the way done with that witness. It seems that they will be the first witness back on the stand, still on cross-examination, and then we have a little bit of redirect to do. But as the court broke for the day, we got into the voir dire of Sergeant Lank, the sergeant who was with Sergeant Good, who took the initial witness statements at the Alberts house, and who did the evidence and checking things into evidence. Sergeant Lank was voir dired regarding incidents he had had with the Lapolito brothers. One of them was named Alfredo. I don't remember what the other one was named, but there was an incident some 22 years ago where it seems that Christopher Albert got into a fracas with the Lapolito brothers, that this Sergeant Lank was there as well. And when Christopher Albert came out of, I think, a bar, he went to Sergeant Lank, who was off duty and had been out as well, and was like, you know, I had this problem. This is what happened. And here they come now. And then there was a scuffle of some sorts that resulted in a criminal prosecution and a federal lawsuit that settled. Also resulted in witness intimidation charges against the Lapolito brothers as to things that they said to Sergeant Lank on another incident, and those ended up getting thrown out. The defense is arguing that this is relevant to the lengths that Sergeant Lank will go to be involved with the Albert family or to perhaps protect the Albert family. He also brought up a case where one of the other Albert brothers had hit a vehicle and then gone to 34 Fairview, left the scene of the crime, parked the car there, and they had followed that individual to the home at 34 Fairview and then investigated that hit and run there. But it seems that no field sobriety test or others was conducted, but that they spoke to the individual during this daytime collision. So there is definitely family history there between the Alberts and Sergeant Lank. This is a small town. People did all grow up together. And if the jury is all from Canton, which it seems that they are, they're going to all understand this too. It is a small community. I understand. I grew up in similarly small communities. And so I well know what it's like when you're like, no, I literally went to high school with everybody. In fact, I've been in court when people I went to high school have come in on, and the first thing I did was say, I went to high school with them. I'm not dealing with this case at all. We're gonna find another prosecutor, and I am going to excuse myself, which is exactly the defense's point here, is why didn't Sergeant Lank say, I know the Alberts. I am not going to be involved here. I am out. let someone else make these connections. Let someone else take these initial reports. The way Sergeant Good said when he's like, I don't think we should be investigating this at all. I think there's connections here that are an issue, especially since one of the Albert brothers is, an investigator for Canton PD, the home of Brian Albert, where the victim, Officer John O'Keefe, was found. Brian Albert's Boston PD. Officer O'Keefe is Boston PD. But Brian Albert's brother is Canton PD. And that was part of the problem as well. So at the end of the day, we got very much more into the interconnectedness of this community and this law enforcement community. We'll see how that continues to play out tomorrow. For deep dives into the stories that I covered here, you can find them